The relationship between Jay and Dame began to get strained slowly over a long period of time. Reportedly, on that Hard Knock Life tour in '99, Jay had first begun to tire of Dame Dash's abrasive management style, exemplified by his many public outbursts on camera, including this famous moment backstage on the Hard Knock Life tour where Dame Dash went crazy after discovering his artists had been sent branded jackets emblazoned with the Def Jam logo rather than the Rockefeller logo.
See this jacket? You see the Memphis Bleak? I didn't never have a Rockefeller coat that said Memphis Bleak. This is the only thing Def Jam got one up on. But other than that, Rockefeller is the home team.
And this led to that famous tense confrontation between Def Jam CEO Kevin Liles and Dame, where he called him a quarter water.
All of a sudden, this Def Jam jackets with names on all over the tour. That's weak, man. Jackets with their names on and on our tour and makes it look like a Def Jam tour. So you're not partners, you got a quarter. You're a quarter water, that's it.
It was this kind of behaviour that helped Dame Dash cultivate a reputation as a quote-unquote a pattern of behaviour that continued over the 5 years that followed. In fact, several popular nicknames for Dame Dash swirled around the Rockefeller office's water coolers, including but not limited to Damon Dash Hole, Dame Dolph Hitler, and of course, Dame Dash, the CEO of Rockefeller Records. But aside from Dame's irritating behaviour in the streets, he was also making irritating business moves in the boardroom that were getting on Jay-Z's nerves. Dame was trying to get his Rockefeller Films venture off the ground and kept hauling Jay in for cameos in his budget, badly scripted films.
Damon Dash has invited our magazine inside Rockefeller.
Making these films apparently wasn't much interest to Jay. And to make matters worse, it seemed like Dame Dash was getting more and more arrogant by the day. And according to Beanie Siegel, Jay didn't like how Dame Dash was getting sucked into being a celebrity rather than being a CEO and wasting so much company money on vanity spending.
Dame started being famous.
Champagne Dash? Egotistical and arrogant? Surely not. I mean, just look how humble he is as he pours champagne on that girl's face in the Big Pimpin' video. And supposedly, Dame Dash even had a habit of disrespecting Jay-Z's business acumen in public, making a comment in a New Yorker article which was interpreted by some as suggesting that he didn't like Jay-Z coming along to business meetings. And in 2002, Sway asked Jay-Z about the rumors of a rift between them, which Jay downplayed.
Dame Dash and Jay-Z. Yeah. A lot of people thought that the two of you were feuding over business issues.
Right.
What is, I mean, can you clarify that for the public?
The thing about me and Dame is like whatever we don't agree on, you know, we can always talk to each other and we can always, whether I'm wrong or whether he's wrong or whatever, we can always see our way through it. It's never a problem that we can't see our way through it and people just blow it up to be more than what it was. I mean, it's what we've been doing for forever. You know, we're two different people, you know what I'm saying? He's a loud guy, I'm a laid back guy. Like you know what I'm saying? There's gonna be times where we're not on 100% on the same page, but we're friends.
But supposedly in 2003, while Jay was on vacay with Bey, Dame fired several Rock employees and promoted Cameron to VP of Rockefeller Records without informing Jay. And this was referenced by Jim Jones in the Dipset anthem. Jay returned from vacay a few days later to veto the move, causing public friction between himself, Dame Dash, and Cameron, who he'd been having a complex mini beef with on the side of all of this, originating from Jay taking the H to the Izzo beat from Cam.
That was my beat. Then I heard the shit on the radio 2 weeks later.
Get the hell out of here.
Yeah, so I'm like, this dude here, man.
Sway pressed for those answers once again in an interview around a year later, but Jay was tight-lipped because he ain't no chatty patty.
Has he made decisions that you disagreed with and vice versa?
Absolutely.
Like
I mean,
what?
that's
Like,
just part of being in the business.
which business decisions did he make that you wasn't?
See, and then we going back to violating that trust. I wouldn't do that, but,
okay.
but absolutely.
I thought it was all eyes on Jay-Z, my bad.
It's also been said that around this time, Jay began to have a lot less admiration for Dame Dash as a business mentor, saying in a 2009 XXL interview that he believes that Dame Dash is good at starting something, but constantly gets in his own way, suggesting that Dame Dash just doesn't know how to behave in the professional corporate world. Oh, come on, Jay. I mean, sure, Warren Buffett knows loads about building a successful conglomerate of corporate businesses, but can he move like this? Essentially, Dame was running around constantly causing messes that Jay had to clean up after Dame had been such a dash hole. And from there, Jay began to rely more on his former accountant John Minnelli and record exec Steve Stout for business support. This, combined with Jay-Z's ambition to retire after his final album, The Black Album, and become a full-time business executive, would be the death knell for his partnership with Dame Dash. When a drunken Dame Dash was interviewed in 2004, he seemed to have an inkling that Jay-Z was about to spread his wings and go independent.
So what's going on with you and Jay and everything right now?
That's my man, you know, he's doing his thing, Jay's doing what he do, you know, he got his S. Carter, probably do a record label or something, you know, we love Jay, you know what I'm saying? So, you know, Jay's an independent individual, that's what I breed over at The Rock, he's a product of The Rock. Go fly your wings, Jay, I'm with you, you know what I'm saying?
No doubt.
That's my man.
But nothing could have prepared him for the Inception-level finesse that he was about to be subjected to. Now, to understand how Jay-Z's legendary finesse worked, you've got to understand Def Jam and Rockefeller's corporate ownership structure. Now, Rockefeller was half owned by Universal, who owned a bunch of companies, including Polydor, who owned a quarter of Rockefeller, and Island Def Jam, who owned Def Jam, who owned the other quarter of Rockefeller. Now, tensions had been high between Dame Dash and the other higher-ups at Def Jam due to his terrible behavior over the years.
See this jacket? Shit, chop this, man. You see the Memphis Bleak? I didn't never have a Rockefeller coat that said Memphis Bleak.
And in 2003, secret exploratory meetings had taken place between the CEO of Universal, Doug Morris, and Jay-Z. These were discussions over the potential for Jay-Z to join the executive ranks of Universal after being so impressed with how well he'd managed things at Rockefeller. And backroom dealings regarding Jay-Z's future career as both a rapper and an executive continued behind closed doors. These culminated explosively in the famous blackout marketing meeting arranged in secret by Def Jam. Now, Dame got word that a secret meeting about Jay-Z was being held by Def Jam, and so he reacted like any rational corporate CEO would. He called Choke No Joke, the Rockefeller videographer who came to film Dame ambushing everybody at the boardroom meeting.
So Dame had no idea about this meeting, you know, so he was wondering how could they call a meeting for Rockefeller. Dame told me, you know, yo, Choke, Def Jam called a meeting for the Black Album. They didn't inform me. Meet me at the office at 9:30. We gonna bust up in the meeting at 10 o'clock.
Dame walked into that boardroom and let it rip with all of the finesse of somebody whose car had been blocked in by a child's hearse.
Y'all should have called Damon Dash, make sure I was privy to it, and make sure I was CC'd or whatever. Question, everybody's looking dumb in the face. So what was we doing? What was we talking about in terms of Jay? Let me know. So if y'all want to talk about Jay, if they're on the agenda, let's go through it.
Nah, we're gonna reschedule.
What the you mean you're gonna reschedule?
We're gonna reschedule, man.
What you mean you're gonna reschedule? You get the you're not a leader. You don't know about my culture. Get the out. You don't know about Jay. No one needs you. Get out. Clear a sample or something.
You know what this reminds me of?
You're watching When Keeping It Real Goes Wrong.
You're interfering with the way I deal with my artists.
No, we're not.
That's
no,
illegal. Yes, it is.
Handle your business.
What you mean handle your business? What do you mean by that?
Just handle it.
What do you mean?
Just handle it.
I'm saying, what do you mean by handle your business?
Now, this was allegedly the day that Dame realized that Jay would no longer be dealing with him directly. And story goes that everybody in that meeting knew that Jay-Z was priming up to leave The Rock, apart from Dame. Because up until that point, Dame had been wiling out on people without realizing that Jay had been making moves on his own accord.
Now you're in breach. If you didn't talk to Jay, you're in breach, right or wrong. Y'all use my without consulting Jay according to your operating agreement, right or wrong. I know you didn't talk to Jay about it. Trust me, no one talked to Jay about it.
Memphis Bleak even said on the Drink Champs that he tried to warn Dame that Jay was going at it on his own, but Dame wouldn't listen.
So you was trying to tell him that you moving too fast,
You
like,
wildin'.
cause I'm talking to the big homie, I'm hearing through the pipeline, and then that conversation was on the plane, but I had a one-on-one with everybody and told I see this day coming.
Just trying to keep it together.
Yes.
No, he was like, that's why don't you, Dame.
And then in 2004, an explosive chain of events took place. First off, it was revealed that Def Jam had bought the remaining 50% stake of Rockefeller from Jay-Z, Dame Dash, and Biggs. This was a deal apparently worth around $50 million with a $10 million cash payout. And at the same time, Leo Cohen, who was a longtime mentor of Jay-Z and president of Island Def Jam, which owned Def Jam, left the company completely to go and run Warner. Leo Cohen was replaced by L.A. Reid, who famously clashed with Def Jam president Kevin Liles, causing him to jump ship and go to Warner with Leo. And this left Def Jam with no president. And at this point, Jay-Z was offered the role of president of Def Jam in a $30 million deal that would pay him $10 million a year over 3 years, but most importantly, a clause that would return all of his Def Jam produced master recordings back to him personally. Now, Jay famously values the ownership of his master recordings. And even way back in 1996, he made it very clear that ownership was his goal.
And I know what I didn't want, I know what I wanted. I wanted full control over my music, you know what I mean?
Okay.
Right.
So you're on the publishing rights?
Everything with the 20% distribution fee. We working on that.
Jay-Z called this an offer that he could not refuse, and he was thinking about the legacy that he could leave to his children when he took it. Jay-Z accepted this package in a deal that would effectively make him Dame Dash's boss, reportedly inviting him out to dinner to deliver the bad news, telling him in pure mafiosa style that it's just business. But as a final gesture of goodwill, Jay-Z offered Dame Dash the full rights to the Rockefeller name in exchange for the master recording of Jay's first album, Reasonable Doubt. But in one final move of cutting off his nose to spite his own stupid face, Dame Dash turned this down, and so since it was recorded before that Def Jam deal, to this day Reasonable Doubt is the last item in Jay-Z's music catalogue that he doesn't own 100% outright. And he's unlikely to ever get his hands back on it because Biggs has said in interviews that he will never sell his share.
I'm never letting go Reasonable Doubt.
You're never gonna sell it?
No.
Why is that?
I mean, that's something I hold dear to my heart.
Dame Dash quickly tried to get a new label off the ground, initially going into business as Rock for Life before changing the name of his company to Damon Dash Music Group. Dame Dash Music. This was set to still be an imprint of Universal, but not under the control of Def Jam, which Jay-Z was president of. He likely wanted to do this so he didn't have to report to Jay-Z, because Dame Dash notoriously hates having a boss.
There's no money in this world for someone to pay me so they could call me, so I could call them a boss. That's like calling somebody daddy. How can a man call another man, yo, that's my boss?
But Dame Dash's deal fell apart amid rumors that he was constantly pissing off executives by continuously angling for a bigger role within Universal in order to get on par with Jay-Z. Dame Dash dissolved his label and left Def Jam soon after, with the media lapping up the split. And for a brief moment, Dame Dash even tried to cash in by starting a whack TV show, looking like a budget knockoff of The Apprentice called The Ultimate Hustler, where the final prize for the show was, get this, a fully loaded Jeep Commander. A handy prize which, if I won the show, I would use to drive as far away from Dame Dash as humanly possible. And in a separate deal, in order to completely cut business ties with Jay-Z once and for all, Dame Dash decided to sell his stake in Rockaware to Jay-Z and two other founding partners for $22 million. The obvious assumption is that he did this in order to get out of dealing with Jay-Z finally, considering how much he hates anybody that could be interpreted as his boss.
I really sold my interest in Rockware so I could be completely independent. I was like, I'm gonna take all that money, which I did, and invested in everything that I believe in.
But his more elaborate excuse was that he'd lost his passion for the Rockaware line, and he wanted to invest that money into his wife's fashion business, Rachel Roy.
I sold my interest in Rockware so that I can invest in something that was more reflective of my taste, which was Rachel Roy. And instead of investing in a man all day, I preferred to invest in a woman.
Oh, you know, Rachel Roy that divorced Dame Dash and recently had him arrested because he owes over $400K in child support. Oh, you know, Rachel Roy who was supposedly Becky with the good hair, the flirty side chick from the Met Gala that caused Solange to give Jay-Z a good kicking in that elevator. Oh, you know, Rachel Roy that got her start in fashion working as an intern at Rockaware, ended up marrying the boss and divorcing his ass. That's a bad investment if I ever saw one, Dame. But free of his ties to Rockefeller and Rockaware, Dame Dash was finally a free man, with no boss and $22 million richer. Which sounds like a lot, but he would later find out that that was a very poor move. Rich in money, poor in brain cells. Around a year after Dame sold his stake, Jay-Z would sell the Rockaware brand to licensor Iconics for $204 million. Now, it's not clear exactly what Dame Dash's share in Rockaware was, but let's assume that he at least had a quarter, being that he was the driving force behind the brand's development in the first place. That means selling his stake at $22 million would have valued it at $88 million at the time he sold it. But assuming he'd have held onto his stake and got a quarter of that Iconics deal, he'd have been looking at a $51 million bag. Meaning that if these figures are anywhere near correct, Jay-Z would have finessed Dame Dash out of around $29 million. Now that's one hell of an L to take. And sure, a bunch of stuff came out many years later where they tried to sue Jay for overvaluing the company, and he managed to finesse them back, shutting down that lawsuit and eventually settling for what looked like $15 million. Regardless, Dame missed out on a huge bag here and a huge opportunity with Rockefeller Records' story being cut short early. Dame has only himself to blame for this, because it was his behavior that pushed Jay away in the first place and created these circumstances. We all know that Dame hates having a boss, but he would run around calling Jay his artist on numerous occasions, even in that final boardroom rant.
Having meetings about my artist without calling me?
But Jay shouldn't have been Dame's artist. Jay shouldn't have been Dame's anything. They were partners. Dame wasn't Jay's boss. Dame's ego got way too big for his little baldy head, causing him to overlook the fact that Jay wasn't signed to Rockefeller. Jay was Rockefeller. Dame got so caught up in his own ego, being the boss and not having a boss, that he forgot one very important fact, that even the biggest boss of anything or any company always has stakeholders that can fire him. Whether it's your investors, your employees, your colleagues, or even your own goddamn customers, just because your name is on the building doesn't mean that they can't take your ass down. The staff can fire you for being an asshole by quitting, your customers can fire you by not consuming the whack shit you produce, Dame Dash Studios, and your business partners can fire you by hanging you out to dry and finessing you for the company. and Dame got way too high off sniffing his own farts to realise that. And the fact that Dame Dash didn't develop any significant or successful artists after this all went down is possibly testament to the fact that he wasn't that good of a talent spotter. Meanwhile, Jay-Z clearly did have an eye for talent, bringing amazing acts like Rihanna, Young Jeezy, and Rick Ross to the forefront while he was the head of Def Jam. Turns out berating, screaming at your acts, and leaking their music illegally is no way to foster talent at your label. Since the fall of The Rock, Dame Dash has courted a lot of negative attention regarding his business and financial affairs, whether it's getting arrested for unpaid child support, embarrassingly pulling up on Lee Daniels to try and call in a $2 million debt on the spot, or getting hit with a $7 million defamation suit from a former business partner in a film project. Or worst of all, apparently being so broke that he can't afford to pay a $2,400 court judgment. That's where wiling out and having a bad reputation as being a nightmare to work with gets you. And sure, I know Dame Dash has denied media reports of him being broke, and he's dragged the media for talking negatively on him. But even now, after all of these years, he seems completely incapable of taking responsibility for how his poor behavior led to some of his business failures. Instead, his favorite strategy is just to call anybody who disagrees with him a culture vulture.
It's reflected in the transcript, the accurate testimony.
Oh boy, I wonder what he's going to say about me, eh? As time went by, Dame put the majority of the blame for what happened at Rockefeller, along with the crown of ultimate culture vulture, on former Def Jam president Lyle Cohen.
Leor's a funny dude. He's a mastermind. Brilliant, and he's not scared. I think his influence is what broke up Rockefeller. It's just all business, man. That's that.
My beef was with Leor because I think he's a fake CEO, and I think he's fronting on my culture, but he can't front on anybody else. And I'm calling him out publicly, and I want him to stop trying to rape my culture, go make some money with some other people. Never had a beef with Jay, always with Leor and his whole crew. He's the one that ruined Rockefeller, Leor Cohen.
He was never my boss ever. He might have made someone like a chatty patty think that he was my boss, but he never put up a dollar in his life. He was never a boss of mine. He just represented someone else's money. Why do more black people know about that white man than white people?
Because he was with Jay-Z and you.
No.
But in spite of all of these outbursts, Leo was all up on the Breakfast Club with very little to say about Dame Dash.
I got a business to run.
You're gonna make Dame Dash take this clip and call you a culture vulture.
Who's Dame Dash? You brought him up. I don't even know him. I don't even know him. The first time that I ever heard that Dame Dash had an issue with me was my daughter called me up and asked me, who's Dame Dash? I don't pay attention.
As we all know, Leo Cohen went on to vulture the culture at the highest level possible, founding 300 Entertainment and signing Young Thug to a 360 deal. And of course, going on to become global head of music at YouTube, which is why we love Leo Cohen. Yeah. Dame and Leo aside, Jay-Z's tenure as head of Def Jam was pretty successful, overseeing many big projects and his own comeback with the Kingdom Come album. But by 2008, it had emerged that Jay-Z had inked a new deal worth $150 million with Live Nation to launch his own new label, Rock Nation. He eventually bought back his contract from Def Jam for a whopping $5 million as part of a deal that would give him back ownership of his coveted catalogue of music. And Rockefeller Records has actually been revived twice since. Once by Dame Dash in a failed attempt to sign former Young Money rapper and Cleveland from Family Guy sound-alike, Currency, and Jay-Z revived Rockefeller in name only to sentimentally release the Jay and Ye joint album Watch the Throne under a Rock Nation, Def Jam and Rockefeller umbrella. In 2013, Jay-Z said that he had nothing but love for Dame.
I can only have love for Dame.
That's nice to hear.
I just don't know, where we are in our life.
But conversely, in 2019, after hearing that Jay-Z had signed an NFL deal, Dame Dash was running around saying Jay-Z ain't shit.
If you ask anyone in the industry, it's a common knowledge that Jay ain't, you know what I'm saying?
Define it for our audience.
He's
there.
about the bag, we all know that. It's about, he's self-preserving, period.
Oh, well, that's nice to hear.
Okay, so during the edit, Dame actually came out and spoke on feeling salty about what Jay had done to him at The Rock, so it was worth just adding this here.
No matter what, I feel he robbed me, period. Okay. And no matter what, I'm always gonna feel that way. So you're never gonna, like if I hit somebody with some work and they run off, I forgive it, it don't bother me, but if you ask me about that person, I'm like, nah, he ran off.
Right.
With Rockware, that was dirty. When he said he wasn't gonna be a part of it while I was selling it and devalued it, and then, I stepped away from it because I needed to go do my own thing. Then all of a sudden they do a big deal like that. That was dirty. They put me, that was dirty.
Ultimately, the story's been told. Jay came out the winner and Dame the loser.